Okay, welcome back to this software development lab. I think we'll pick up from where we left last time. I think I shared with you a video on how to go through or go about creating stored procedures and creating REST APIs and testing them to see how they work out, right? So I think we want to pick it up from there, then see what we can be able to achieve. So I'll go straight into um, my code window. So I will open the project that we were working on previously, which is our Expedia database. So yeah, I have a lot of things going here. I'll close this and I'll open my Expedia database, my Expedia application, which is here. Yeah, that's it. But let me close these others. So I'm left with only Expedia. Yeah, so this is my Expedia database. I'll just close up all these windows that are open so we don't have any open windows. So as I had demonstrated in the other video that you had looked at, we had looked at how we can be able to create our REST APIs. We created a database class. This database class is the one that helps us to be able to connect to the database. Then, as we are creating things like countries, then we can be able to incorporate the database class and be able to extend all its functionality. Then we just go ahead and be able to implement functionalities based on the city. So by inheritance, the country class will inherit the database classes and properties, and as such, you can be able to connect with the database, execute queries, get results, and so forth and so forth. So I want us to move on from that. I want us to move on from that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create something. Ellen,
Sorry, I can't see your screen.
you can't see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, how about now? Is it visible?
It stops sharing. It goes blank as soon as you leave the call window.
Okay, let me just stop that and share that again. How about now?
Yes, it's visible now.
Okay, so as I was saying, I want us to go ahead and implement a few things on airlines. So we didn't do anything on airlines as far as our code is concerned. So I'll switch to SQL York. Then I'll connect this, not a big deal, and I'll open my database over here, which is Expedia flight booking. So I have my airlines table, and I don't know if I have functionalities on the airlines. So do we have? Yeah, there's filter airlines. There's not check airlines, but get airlines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a procedure for checking the airline. So SP check airline, check airline like that. Okay, check airline. So for checking airline, we're just going to check if the airline exists or not. If it exists, well, we can check two things. Airlines don't have codes; they only have names. And basically, we check if the airline name exists. Hello. And basically, that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'll expect to have two variables here, which is the airline ID, which is an integer, and airline name, which is variable character 50 in length. So here I'll simply say select all fields from my airlines where the airline ID is not equal to the airline ID provided, but the airline name is equals to the airline name, like that. So that should be able to allow you to check if the airline exists. I think all the other things were incorrect. So I just found that, check if it is successful. It's successful. That's okay. So we have check airline, we have save airline, we have get airlines
Fanya hivi.
and get airline details. Actually, it's filter airline and get airline details. So we have all the functionalities as far as airline is concerned. So let's see how we can be able to implement a class on the airline, then see how we can add the CRUD operations for the airline. So I'll come back to my PHP over here. I'll create a file called airline.php inside models here. I'll call it
Ukisema forget,
airline.php.
ukitaka
So from
kuconnect
here,
kuchapa.
I'll open PHP script, PHP not PGP. Then I'll close the PHP script like that. So once I'm done with that, I'll simply say require once because I need to import the database class inside here,
Click to turn
the PHP like that. So that should allow me to be able to import the database class into this particular file. Then from there, I need to be able to go ahead and now say create a new class called airline. Then it extends the database functionalities so that I can be able to connect with the database and execute queries. Now, inside here, I want to create various methods. So the first method will be to check if the airline exists. So check airline. The next thing I need to do is to save the airline.
Utype run. Unaona hapa kwa search.
Then after I save my airline,
Hapa chini kwa search.
the next thing
Hapa
I
chini
need
kuna
to do
hii search. Type
is
run.
to get filter airlines.
Ukitype run,
Then I'll get
utakuletea
airline
hiyo
details,
run. Utumie run command.
Then I'll get airline details.
Kwa hiyo run, click hiyo run.
Then after that, I'll delete airline.
Umeclick hiyo run.
Delete
itakuletea hiyo
airline
run
like that. So these are the CRUD operations that you can be able to do as far as an airline is concerned. Let's start with the very first one, how to check if an airline exists. So to check if an airline exists, we are going to assign to our global SQL variable. So this global SQL variable is found in this DB. So you have this variable here called SQL, which is supposed to hold all the variables as far all the statements you want to execute. So that's why I defined it at that point. So here I'll simply go to my database and I'll pick the stored procedure that is supposed to check if the airline exists. So I'll do call here. So we said for you to execute any query, you have to say call.
Just click on
Then
it.
you press that.
That.
Then I'll remove the data types
Yes.
over here.
Type.
Then I'll also do
NCPL.
that. So from here, since this is a number, I'll just put curly braces. And since this other one is a string,
Small
I'll
letters.
put
Nairobi, Congo,
a small
Parrot,
what do you call a hyphen.
L.
Then I'll put square bracket.
NCPL, LCP.
Then from there, I'll just execute this query. Now, the thing with
CP.
checking if an alien exists is if this query returns any rows, then it means that the data exists. Otherwise, if the query does not return anything, then it means that the airline does not exist. Of course, if I'm checking the airline, I also need to provide these two variables. So there's airline and airline ID and airline name. I need to provide those two variables, airline name, like that. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this object dot get data. Then I'll put the query that I want to execute. Then I'll simply tell it to get the row count properties. This will either return true or false, depending on whether any rows are returned or not. So if any rows are returned, it will return true. If no rows are returned, it will return false. Like that. So if it returns true, it means that an airline exists. If it returns false, it means that an airline does not exist. Then from here, when I'm saving when I want to save my airline, the first thing I will do is to check if the airline exists. So I'll check if the airline exists, like that. So to check if the airline exists, I'll simply call this current object, then I'll execute this method over here directly.
Angalia nimekutext what you need to type. ncpl.cpa.
Like that. So I'll simply check if this returns true. So if this one returns true, so it means that the airline exists. Otherwise, the airline does not exist.
.cpl.
So if the airline exists, what I'm going to do is just return
Nairobi, Cameroon, Parrot,
method, an array rather, with one of the properties called success, status rather, which is going to be success. This should be status.
Click your Wi-Fi.
Then the other field name will be the message, and I'll say the message is the
No,
airline exists.
hapo imekuletea nini na nini?
So that would
Vitu
return if the airline
zimekuletea.
exists. This is the array that's going to be returned. Otherwise, if the airline does not
Hiyo
exist,
wifi imeji
then I will be able to
wifi
save it.
hebu right
So
click
I'll say
kwenye
SQL equals.
enable ama
I
connect.
put the word called. Then I'll get the stored procedure
Iko
that saves
grayed out
the
ama
airline.
iko
So save
bluish?
airline here. I'll right click, alter. Then I'll pick these parameters over
Iko
here.
bluish na inaonyesha X.
Okay. So I'll paste that over here. Then I will remove the data types like that. Sorry, made a mistake. I just need to remove this and this
Sasa
and
kumbe iko na
this
key ile time you forget.
like that. So I'll just pick these variables and
Wacha
add them up
wacha
here
nitumie sasa hiyo password.
because I need to have them passed as my variables.
Nakutumia.
Then of course, depending on the data type, this is going to be an integer. So
Inakuwa
just
sense.
curly brackets. Airline name is a string, so I'll put the apostrophe, then square bracket. Home country is going to be a number because it's the country ID. Logo is going to be the path, which is a string. So I'm going to put that. So depending if it's a string or a date, you have to include these single quotation marks. If they are any data type that is not that is a number or something like that, then you don't need to input those brackets. So once I'm done with that, I'll simply come here and say this. Now dot get data. Now every time we want to store data, we'll say get data because we just want to execute a query and not return any results as such. If we expect to return any results, then we use get JSON. So um, if you look at the DB class over here and you say get data, you can see it is just executing a query without returning anything. But if I say get JSON, I'm going to encode that data in form of a JSON object. Then of course I'm going to return it for purposes of being output elsewhere. So every time I want to execute something that just saves data, I'll use get data. But if I want to output data to the browser, I'll use get JSON. So that's the difference between these two functions over here that we wrote in our database class. So get data. So then once I'll say get data, and if everything is okay, I'll just return a success message. So the status of this array that I'm returning will be success. This one can't be success. This one will be exists. So this one is one that's going to be success. Then the message here would be the airline was saved successfully. Successfully, like that. So I'll put a semicolon here. So that should be able to allow me to save my airline. I don't know what the issue is. I have missed uh, an arrow here, so that's why it was giving me a problem because this is an associative array, so it means it has to have field value or value key pair. It's a value key pair or key value pair. So I have the key and value, and the keys and values are separated by that fat arrow. So that's the mistake I was making. So I have created one method called check airline, the other method called set airline. Then I need to create another method for filter airlines. So if I come back to my query for filtering airlines, which is here, I'll see filter airlines, I'll give the airline name and I'll give the country. So that now if I give the airline name, it will give me all the airlines that are based on that name. If I pick a country also, it will give me all the airlines in that particular country. So I'll pick this one over here. So I'll say I'll need the airline name. I'll just pass the airline name and also the airline country. So I need to pass those two. Then here I'll pick my SQL and I will assign it to this variable called airlines. I'll pass these two variables as is, like that and like that. Okay. So because all these things are strings, I will enclose them in single quotation marks and curly braces. Again, single quotation mark and curly braces like that. Then I'll simply say, because I want to return this data back to the browser or a client request, I'll simply say echo or return. Then I'll simply say this. Then now I'll say get JSON because I said every time I want to return data, I'll use get JSON. Every time I just want to save data, I'll use get data. like that. Get data will just save but not return anything, but actually it can return something because if you look at what I've done here, I have basically returned the execution of that query. It's only that I'm not going to use it for anything else. But if I say get JSON, I'll actually get whatever was executed as get data, store that in a record set, then fetch all the data in the record set as an associative array, then encode it as a JSON object and output it on the client that has made the request. So if you want to fetch data, we use get JSON. If you want to save data, we use get data. And I've tried to explain that is how I have written my functions over here to achieve those two purposes. Then down here, if you want to get a specific airline's details, we'll need the airline ID. So I'll come here and I'll pass the
Document.
airline ID. So here again, I'll come and say,
Capital
so for
P
my
dash
SQL, it will be
SW0
called
RD dot.
come to my um, come to my database. I'll come to get airline details over here. So I'll copy this query. You can see it only has airline ID and put it here like that. And of course, enclose it in curly braces like that. Then I'll simply say return this because I want to return this data. This
P
get JSON. Then I'll pass my SQL statement. That should allow me to filter data, convert it to a JSON object, then return that object, which I can actually now output on the other side. Then I have this delete airline like that. So this delete airline again, I will just need the airline ID to delete an airline ID. So for the query, I'll simply say SQL is equals call. Then I come to my database, sorry, and check how what stored procedure is used to delete the airline.
imekata hiyo homework inakata.
So I'll come here and say delete airline, which is here. As you can see, it only accepts one parameter, which is the airline ID. So I'll copy this and paste this one over there, like that. So again, this one I'll enclose it in bracket. Then here I'll put a semicolon. So here I'll just return this get data. Every time we are saving, we use get data. Then I'll put SQL. Then here, of course, I'll return. Now this one is not return, but rather just execute that. Then I return
Sasa hiyo
status,
ama hiyo ndio iko na
which is success.
iko na
Then
iko na IDs.
message is equals to the airline
I make any difference.
was deleted successfully.
I make any difference. Kama I make any difference. Kama
Like
wewe
that.
sitakata.
So that should allow me to be able to perform these current operations as far as the airline is concerned. We have checked the airline, saved the airline, filtered the airlines,
So
got
one
airline
thing
details,
another
and of course, then we can delete also an airline. So what I'm going to do is I have created this particular class over here called airline, and a class is a template, which means that it does not do anything. It's just going to sit there and wait for you to be able to initiate it, to invoke it. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a controller, which will now allow us to create a new object based on this template. Then from there, we can now be able to invoke the various methods that are exposed by this particular function. Consider this airline PHP file as the class as basically a template. Like you can be used, you can have those things when you want to cook cake. There's a template that you have where you put ingredients. Now the template as it is does not do anything, but when you put ingredients and you bake, then you end up with a cake. So this is more like that template. But then when we create an instance of the class, then we now have the ingredients which we now can be able to say this is a vanilla cake. This is black forest, this is white forest, and so on and so forth. And you can be able to get them into that particular mold to get the shape. So actually, this is more like a mold. Then now from the mold, we get a cake. So a mold does not do anything. It just knows that I'm supposed to be in this shape, I'm supposed to be in this size, I'm supposed to do these things, and so forth and so forth. But in itself, as a mold, it does not do anything. But now we're going to create an actual class, which is an instance of the class. Then we can be able to see how this works out. Again, as I'm saying, this is basically a continuation of what we looked at last. I'm just trying to explain further how we can be able to do it better before we introduce our new topic for today. So I'll come to the controllers here and I'll create a new file and I'll call it airline operations.php. Airline operations. So this is going to be my controller.php. So airline operations.php, that's fine. Then I'll set this as a PHP file and I'll close it. Of course, the first thing I need to do is to add this airline class. Now, this airline class, I've put it in the wrong place, so you can see it's outside the models. It's supposed to be inside the models. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it, then I'm going to paste it inside the models here. Yes, so it's supposed to be inside models over here. So you can see it is inside models, not outside the models. That's where it needed to be. So from here, I'll say require once. Then I need to go up one level. See, I'm already inside controllers, so I need to get out of controllers. So to get out of controllers, I'll put two dots with a backslash. That means I have jumped out of controllers. Now I am on the Expedia folder. Since I'm on the Expedia folder, I want to go into the models folder. So I'll say models. Then inside the models folder, I want to load the airline.php like that. Then that one means I have already loaded that particular class. So the only thing I need to do is to create a new class. So I'll create a new class called airline, which is an instance of the airline class. So this is an actual object. This is a template, more like a mold. This is more like a mold. This is the actual cake recipe. So this is the actual cake recipe, but this is the mold. If you look at it from that analogy perspective. So this one, as it is, does not do anything. Now, this one can allow me to now be able to invoke all the methods that I have as far as the airline class is concerned. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to check what the user is trying to do. So the user can try to do so many things. They can try to create an airline. They can try to get airline details. They can try to filter airlines. They can also try to delete an airline. So they can do very different things. So I want to be able to trap all these things that the user is actually capable of doing. So what I'll say here, if is set, then I'll say post because every time we want to save data, we use post. If it's set post, then I'll say save airline. So if the user says I want to save airline, then we will save the airline. So what you're going to do here, you're going to say airline ID is equals to the post object of airline ID, like that. Then we also have airline name, which is an instance of, rather a post request of airline name. We have home country ID, which is an instance of the home country ID. So each airline has a home. Now these are the three parameters that we need. Then I'll declare another parameter called response. And this response is basically going to hold for me the response when I execute this save airline. So whenever I execute this, I'm going to return either or this or an error. So there are three possibilities. Either return an error, I return this, or I return this depending on the prevailing conditions of this particular query. So because I'm going to return something, that's what I want to save inside my response. So I'll copy this and store that response inside this response variable that I've declared here. Sorry. I think I copied and pasted here. Yeah, something like that. So logo, I missed the logo. So logo is equals post logo, like that. Okay, so that response I'll have it. I'll put as a column here, all statements in PHP as a column. Then I can simply say echo JSON encode, then response. Why JSON encode? Because if you look at what I am returning, as far as this save is concerned, what I'm going to be returning is mostly an array, an associative array. So this is an associative array, and this is also an associative array, which means I'm going to be returning an associative array, and you cannot output an associative array directly. That's why I am encoding it as a JSON object so that it is displayed the other side as a JSON object. So I'm just confirming that the recording is on. Don't worry about that. So from here, I can now open my Postman. because I want to test if actually saving an airline works. Okay, so I'll open Postman. I'll give it a couple of seconds to load. Well, I can close all this. This is quite a lot, so just close all this. Don't save. Don't save. There are too many. Let me just get rid of some. I just want to see how it works out. So in your case, you might actually have nothing on the screen, something similar to this. So something similar to this. So what I want to do here is just to create a new request. This new request is going to be a post request because if you can see my code here, I've said post, which means when somebody says post and they say save airline, then I'm going to pick all the things from the form that they are posting and I'm going to be able to test to try and save that airline and give the user a response as appropriate. So it's going to be a post event. So we have two types of there are more than two actually because we have post and we have get, which are the most commonly used, but there's also put, there's delete, and so forth and so forth. But mostly we use post and get. Post will send over sensitive data and a lot of data like files and all that kind of stuff, and it will be sent separately as a payload, whereas get will include whatever we want to extract as part of the URL that is being shared. I think we also explained that in the last class. So since it's post, I'll say save airline over here. So what I'm going to do once I put post and I'll put my URL, it's localhost. Then inside localhost, I'm doing something called Expedia. And inside Expedia, I have controllers. And inside controllers, I have airline operations. Airline operations. .php. So this is actually the path. So if you come back to my code, the folder is Expedia, then controllers, then airline operations.php. Because this one is inside our local host, and there's a folder called Expedia. That's why I've said go to localhost, get a folder called Expedia, go inside controllers. This would actually not work. Go inside controllers, then while you're inside the controllers folder, get something called airline operations.php. So once this you have reached, this is actually our endpoint. Once you reach this endpoint, I'm going to come to body here and I'll say form because I'm submitting post request. Then from the form, I'll now feed in the forms that I want. So save airline, I'll set it to true. Then I'll put airline ID. I'll put 0 because I want to create a new one. Then airline name, I'll say Kenya Airways. Well, I think we have Kenya Airways in the database, but nonetheless, let's try and see if it's going to work out. Then the logo, I just put blank. There's no logo, right? So when I try to send this one over, it will check and it will tell me home country ID
Hello.
has not been defined. So you can see I've not defined the home country ID. So I need to put home country ID, which
Hapo
is
inaonyesha
1.
orange.
Home country ID is 1, which is Kenya. So I'll try to send again.
Basi ni cable
And
ziko
it's
loose.
going to tell me there's an undefined function called save airline, which is okay. So let me check if the save airline function has been defined. So I'll come back here. I'll come inside my airline and I'll come to check save airline. Save airline is actually here. Why is it telling me it has not been saved? So I'll come to airline operations here. So this should be airline dot. So I'll put airline. It's a method on the class. So on the airline, I want to execute save airline. So inside this airline, go and execute this method. So inside airline, go and execute this method. So I made a mistake. I just tried to call the function save airline directly rather than call it as part of this particular object instance over here. That's the mistake that I made. So let's try that again and see. So you can see the message was sent successful. So it means that I didn't have KQ inside my airlines. So let me just open that. Yeah, Kenya Airways was there. Well, I think it has not saved it because it exists, but it should have told me that it exists. So let me see why that is the case. So why is it not checking? So I'll come here and I'll check airline here, and I'll put airline ID here as 0, and airline name is airline name. Okay, I think that should work. So let me just test if this query works first of all. So that's why you need to test them side by side. So airline ID of 0 and airline name of Kenya Airways. The spelling does not, the name does not matter, the case does not matter. So Kenya Airways exists. So if it exists, I need to show you that it exists. So I'll come here. I said check airline ID, airline name. So I didn't return. That's the problem. I forgot to return here. So since I didn't return, it just executed, and since no value was returned, then it went ahead and tried to execute the second line. But again, what we did is when you're trying to save it, when you're trying to save the airline, what we did is we checked if the airline exists. So we're checking both sides. So again, here you see if the airline ID is 0, we check if it exists. If it exists, we don't save it. If it does not exist, is when you create it. So we have more like a double buffer as far as checking if an airline exists before we save it. So we can check and tell the user. And if for some reason the API is talking to the API itself, then we simply check inside the database itself. So we have more like two layers of doing the actual check. So the return was the issue. I didn't return this value, so this would never execute because it would never return true. So I think once that is in place, we can try this again and see if it's going to tell us if it exists. So send that over, and you can see now it tells me that it exists. So we can try to add the ones that don't exist. Let me look at my table. So I don't have Safari. Safari link is not here. So let's go ahead and add Safari link. So we have Safari link. And you can see Safari link is successful. So it means the Safari link has been saved to my database. And you can see the Safari link is actually there. There's no logo for Safari link. Let's edit the logo for Safari link. The ID is 5. Let's put here the logo for Safari link. So Safari link has an ID of 5. I'm just trying to show us how we now use the API. The logo would be Safari link.jpg. Then I'll try to send it over. It is still successful. When I come back into my database here, I check. It has actually updated safarilink.jpg. So it means that my API, in terms of addition and update, it's working. Now let's extract details for Safari Link, or let's get all the airlines that have the word. Let's get all the airlines in Kenya first of all. So what I'm going to do is um, is uh, is I'll come here, I'll create a new request, but this request is going to be a get. I'll pick the same path. All of them are coming from the same path. The only thing that is going to be different is what you're executing. So every time we're executing data, we use get, and here we have not put any functionality on getting the data. So let's add that functionality first. So in airline operation, we have only checked if you're saving. We also need to check if you're getting the airline. So I'll simply say if is set, then this is going to be get filter airlines. Filter airlines like that. So if I'm filtering airlines, I'll need the airline name, which can be there or not. And then I'll also need the country name, which can be there or not. So if they're not there, then we don't search them. If they're there, we leave them aside. So what we simply do here is we simply say something like this. So if for some reason the airline name is provided, then let's filter it out. So I'll simply say if is set. You don't put if, but you just say is set. Get country name. If the country name has been provided, then what do you do? Then we pick the country name that has been provided. Okay. Otherwise, we simply put the country name to be blank like that. So if the country name is not provided, we don't provide it. Similar, we come here and say, this should actually be down here. It should be down here. But then at the top here, we need to check the airline name. Then here also the airline name, like that. So those are the two parameters that we need. So once we have those, so it can either be blank or a value can be provided. And by the way, you can write this. So let me write this down here so that you see what I mean. So you can write this as this: if is set get country name, then country name is equals to get country name. Otherwise, country name is blank. So these two statements are the same. Now these three lines, these four lines, and this statement mean exactly the same thing. So depending on what you're comfortable writing, I'll leave that here as a comment, just in case you like writing it this way, then you can write it this way. But this is actually a nicer way of writing it because I'm just checking if this value is set, then set this variable to this. Otherwise, set that variable to blank, something of the sort, right? So or either of them should be able to work. So here, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to echo, then I'll pick my airline rather. Then I'll execute the method that says filter airlines. You can see it has those two parameters: airline name and airline country, like that. So this should be country name. So airline name, this one I've renamed it to country name. The variable naming does not matter so long as you pass them correctly. So something like that. So this one now allows me to be able to filter airlines if they do exist. So first of all, I'll simply copy this and paste it here, and I'll set the value to true. Now I'm not providing any airline name or any country name, so it means it should give me all of them. So when I do that and define variable country name, that is on line number 23. So let's go to country name, this country name. So I've so if it's set get country name and get country name, otherwise it's blank, yeah. This country name, this country name. So what's the issue? Let me check here. Also, this is airline country, so it should be country name. This variable and this variable should have the same name, because if it doesn't have the same name and I'm passing it as a variable, then it means that that would not be able to work out. I think that was the issue. So I just run it. Then you can see I don't have any countries. Well, if I say I think that query is wrong. If I don't provide any of them, then it should be able to give me all of them. But let me put country name and I say Kenya. I'm able to see all the airports that are coming from Kenya. Then if I want a specific, if I don't put the country name, I pass the country name, but I say the airline name is maybe say has the word which one? Jumbo. I should get Jumbo Jet only if my query works properly. And you can see I have Jumbo Jet. So it's able to fill up. The only challenge is I think I've mentioned that if neither of them is available, then return all the countries. I think that's the only issue that we have with the query. But otherwise, in terms of operation, you can be able to see this works out just fine. So we can go ahead and do the third one, which is now getting a specific airlines details. So again, I'm going to come to my control over here, and I'll check. By the way, as I was mentioning, this statement and this statement are the same, so we can actually mask this, then
Excuse
execute
me,
this.
sir. Are we still going on with the class?
Yes, I'm still going on with the class. You're not seeing my screen? My screen is not shared, okay? Sorry, my screen was not shared. I don't know why it stopped sharing. All right. So you now you can be able to see it. Eh? Don't worry, the recording is perfectly fine. You're going to be able to follow up whatever is not available in the recording. But keep me posted in case there is an issue. My screen is not available. You're not able to hear my voice and all that. Just keep me posted so that I know. Because sometimes I think that everything is fine, whereas everything is actually not fine. So even the recording is okay. So that's the only challenge. But keep me posted in the event that that happens. So as I was saying, and I think the sharing is still there. Okay, yes. So as I was saying, I have done those two operations, that is saving the airline and filtering the airline. Now the other thing I wanted is just to get a specific airline's details. So I'll still come to my airline operations over here. Then I'll check.
I'm sorry, sir, but we can't hear you.
You can't
You
hear me
can write to
again.
permit
Okay.
and from outside.
How
To
about now?
VPN,
Can you hear me?
we are not able to access this.
And
And
Now you
all
can
the
hear me,
servers,
eh?
he said it is not in my control.
yes,
Okay, I
You
think
need
we
to
can go
open one
on.
particular port
So
so that you can access
I'll
from
simply do
outside
if is set.
the SQL.
Then I'll check
Just
here
put the mail, he will do
get, and I'll say
with a CC to Santosh.
get
Just keep CC to
airline details.
yesterday. This
So
Dennis has sent an email regarding backup. You see that?
here I'll simply
Mm,
get
so
the airline ID.
but backup, they need to do it.
Get
So
airline
don't say we
ID.
are not doing it. You can say we have a backup in your local, but at
Okay.
your end on the server,
So once I
you
get
need
the
to do
airline
the
ID, I
configuration
can simply just go ahead
to
and
do
say
the backup.
echo
We are not able to do
this
yeah, the backup of the
airline.
database.
Then I'll execute
They can
this get
backup
airline
the
method.
database better.
Get
You have
airline
a
details
comfortable
over
place
here,
like that.
like that.
Mm. But because
So
it's
that should be able to
company,
give me
it's
the
company,
airline
they
details.
usually just
So when I come back to my postman over here, add a new request, then I'll paste my URL. It's the same URL that you have over here up to this point. Okay. Then the only thing I'll do is get airline details, get airline details. I think that's what we call it, and we set it to true. Then you can give the airline ID that you want the details, airline ID, whose details you want is 5. Then we say send. You should be able to give us details of the airline ID here. That is Safari Link. So if I put 1, I should see Kenya Airways. Yes. So get airline ID also works. So now the last operation that we need to do is to delete an airline that exists. So we'll simply say here if is set post delete airline like that. Then I'll need the airline ID, of course, which will be a post. So every time you use post for checking which operation is being done, all the parameters are also picked by post. If you use get, the parameters are picked by get, as you can be able to see I've been doing over here. Get goes with get, posts goes with posts. Okay, so I'll get here the post airline ID. So then what I'll simply do, I'll save this in a response because I'm just going to execute it. It's going to give me some data in form of an array. Then I need to convert that array. So I'll simply say here airline. Then I'll execute the method that deletes that airline, which is this one. Okay. Then of course I'll now say echo JSON encode. Then I'm going to encode this response that I have gotten. So whatever the response is going to be, whether it's going to be successful or a failure, whatever it's going to be, it's going to be encoded and outputted on the browser. So here, what I'll do is I'll just create a new method, a new request rather. Then I'll put a post request. I'll use my URL, which is here. But
excuse me, sir, your screen isn't visible.
okay, I don't know why it is turning on off lately. Um, how about now?
Yes, it's visible now.
Okay, so as I was saying, I'll pick my path, then I'll say it's post, not get. So I'll say here post. Then I'll go to body, then form data. Then I'll say delete airline. Then I'll set that to true. Then I'll give the airline ID to delete. I want to delete airline ID number 5. So if I come to my database, ID number 5 here is Safari link. So I want to delete Safari link, or I can delete 5540. Let me delete 55540. So I'll give ID number 4. Then I'll simply say send. If it deletes successfully, it will tell me status success message. The message is airline was deleted successfully. And if I come here, I refresh, I'll see now fly 540 is not there. It has been deleted. So generally, this is how we create our REST APIs. I just wanted to refresh on this so that we are able to understand exactly how we create the REST APIs, how we create the class rather, how we create a controller which is an instance of the class, and then invoke the methods in the class. Simply, that basically forms what we call our REST API, and that's very important because moving forward, then we can now be able to create as many REST APIs as possible. So this is just one REST API. This is just one REST API, but it has several functionality. You can save airline, filter airline, get airline details, or delete an airline. We have another API here for country, which you could not that, but country here, which you could save country, get countries, and so on. So we have an API for airline operation, an API for city operations, and an API for country operations. Then we can have APIs, REST APIs for all the other elements we have on our database, all the other entities we have on our database, flights, bookings, and so forth and so forth. We will need to create that functionality as far as REST APIs is concerned. Are we comfortable up to that level? So that was a recap or what I wanted to explain based on what I had shared videos on last. So maybe if there was something that was not clear, then maybe some you could ask a question. I can be able to clarify that out because it's very important for us to be able to understand exactly how that works out. Okay. Any question up that point? So I was focusing on airline, which is the template. Then we have airline operations, which is an instant of the template, and now we can be able to perform actions on it. So you can now see from here, I can be able to perform action. From here, I can be able to perform action. From here, I can be able to perform action. And from here, I can also be able to perform another action, which is very, very important when it comes to object-oriented programming. How exactly do these things work out? That is how object instantiation works. So this is instantiation, then this is invoking the methods as far as the object is concerned. So if you're doing object-oriented programming, that is the implementation of those two strategies as far as OOP is concerned. Okay. Yeah, so if there's no question, I want us to move into something else called Git or Global Information Tracking or version control. We constantly need to control the version of the application that we're building. A lot of things can go wrong. We need to be able to know where what was okay, we revert to what was okay, then try to figure out the changes that we made, then maybe undo those changes, or maybe try to troubleshoot what could be bringing issues as far as those changes that we implemented is concerned. So Git is going to be a tool that you're going to be using almost on a daily basis to be able to control the versions of the applications that we're currently developing. So what I'm going to do is I had already instantiated Git yesterday on this folder, so I'll just remove it so that I can show you how we are able to do it from scratch. So our Expedia app installed in XAMPP, htdocs. Then we have Expedia here. So this is where our application is stored. Expedia. It's here. So this is where our application is stored. I'll get rid of this folder. So now we don't have version control inside there. So you can see this is how I expect my files to look like. Now, for you to use Git, there are two things. There is Git and there is GitHub. They're not the same thing. Git is a version control tool. GitHub is a version control repository. So Git is a version control tool. GitHub is a version control repository, which means you have a remote repository or a storage location where you can be able to save your data from outside your computer. But Git, on the other hand, keeps track of the changes that happens to your files. All right. So that's very, very important for us to be able to note. So what you're going to do, so for you to use Git, you will have to make sure that Git is installed. So to install Git, simply open your browser window, then navigate to Google, then just search for Git, not GitHub, just Git, Git, like that. Then once you get Git, you can go ahead and now download it. You can go to downloads here, or you can download for Windows. You can go to downloads here. Then from the downloads, you can pick the various platforms that you're using. If you're using a Mac, if you're using Windows, or if you're using Linux, you can pick your tool. So if I'm using Windows, which of course it will detect automatically, just come here and say download Git for Windows. It will be able to initiate. Of course, if possible, it will ask you which version of Windows are you using. I'm using an x64 machine, so it will start downloading Git as you can see over here. So it will download until it is done. After which, just click on install, then next, 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 next until you're done. Nothing very special about any configurations as far as installing it is concerned. So that is how you will do the installation. Of course, depending on the version of the operating system that you're using, the instructions can be different. So just follow the instructions that have been given. Now, if you're using Windows and you have PowerShell, you may not necessarily need to download Git as a whole. Just come and copy this file over here, then open PowerShell on your Windows menu, then just paste that particular command over there. It will install Git for you. So if you paste this command over here, then you press enter, it will just install Git for you automatically. You don't need to download it and go through all the processes as far as it's concerned. But however you get Git onto your computer, that's what's important. Now, once you have installed Git, you need to check if it has been installed properly. How do you check if it has been installed properly? Just open your command prompt window or even PowerShell window. So I can say CMD here and I press enter. Then I type git hyphen hyphen version. So if I do that and I see git version, then I have version here. It means that Git has been installed properly. If I don't get that, I get an error, maybe that it does not understand a command called Git or something of the sort, then it means that Git was not installed properly. And by that, it means you need to go back and make sure that you have installed the Git properly. Okay, so once you've installed your Git properly, that's where we get started fast. Now you can come back to your application. The good thing with Visual Studio Code is that it comes with an inbuilt version, I mean not version, but terminal. Visual Studio Code comes with an inbuilt terminal. So you can open the terminal from here, you come to the terminal menu, then you say new terminal. Or because sometimes I like using shortcut, you can use shift and the backtick. The backtick is the key just before one. The one that looks like approximate. So when you hold shift and that backtick, it will also open the command window. Not shift but control. Control and backtick will also open for you a terminal window, as you can see I have done down here. So control backtick will open it for you, or terminal, new terminal, you'll still end up with a backtick over here. So the good thing with this is that it will always be in the folder that your code is located. So you don't need to switch to folders back and forth, and that's the best part. Okay, so if you want to use Git, if you want to track all the files, if you want to track changes in all the files that you have inside your application, what you need to do is first of all to initialize Git. So how do you initialize Git? You simply say Git init, like that, Git initialize. Then when you say Git init, it will initialize an empty Git repository. And as you can see right now, all the files that I have here are not being tracked. They are untracked. That's why they have the letter U. So once I do that, all my files will have a letter U. So what do I need to do now? I've made some changes on my files, and I want to create the first version of my application. So I'll simply say git add. So what do you add? You can add file by file. So I can say here maybe add airline.php. Then I can separate and put other files and so forth and so forth. But this is a very difficult job unless you know exactly the files that you want to add. If you want to add all the files, simply put a dot. So git add a dot will add all your files to the staging directory. So I'll press enter. So you can see now all my files have been added to the staging directory. Then the next thing I need to do is to commit the changes that I have made. To commit changes means write those changes into from the staging directory. Now commit them into a branch or something of the sort. So what I'm going to do is say git commit. Then I'll put minus m for the message. Then I'll put the message that I want, something that if I look at, I'll know exactly what I was trying to do. So here I will say setup of the data of the MVC structure and implementation of countries, city, and airline CRAD operations. So if I look at that statement like that, it will tell me exactly what this commit is all about. Then I press enter. And when I do that, you're going to see now the changes have gone. So it means what has happened is all these changes have been committed to my Git repository. So now this is local in my machine, not super helpful. It's helpful, of course, if I wanted to move back and forth, there was a mistake in my code and I need to check what files changed and all that. That's useful. But of course, if I lost my computer or for some strange reason I'm not able to access the code, then this is not very helpful. Now that's where now GitHub comes in. Remember, Git is version control. It keeps track of the changes on your files as you continue to type your code. Then GitHub, on the other hand, allows you to be able to move these files from your machine to somewhere online, which you can share with multiple people, or in the event of a disaster, you can just go and clone that repository back into your computer and you're able to go on with your work. So let's create a GitHub account, then we see how we can push this code online. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go into incognito mode so that now it does not track the credential or state that I'm currently in. Then I'll go to github.com. You can use GitHub, you can use Bitbucket, you can use GitLab, whichever whichever remote repository you want to use. Okay, but I think GitHub is fairly easy to use and they are free, and almost anybody has access to it if you have a Gmail account. So if you don't have an account with GitHub, simply come here and say sign up. So after sign up, you can sign up with Google or you can fill in your details over here. Then you can create your account. Now, since I already have an account, I'll simply sign in. So I'll come to sign in over here. I'll put my Gmail and my password. So it's going to send a code on my Gmail account. Well, that's strange. But let me just get it from there. So I have this GitHub, this code. So I log in with it over here. So it will verify, then allow me to get in. So now what will happen is once you get in, you can go ahead and create a new repository up here like this. Then call the repository My Expedia or whatever you want to call it. Then you can describe it. So this is a web-based application for flight booking. Now you can either make it public or private. If you make it public, it means anybody can be able to see it. If you make it private, you have to invite people to the repository. Then they can now be able to access it only when you have added them to the repository. So if you're doing a private projects, well, you can make them private. But if you're doing something like this one, where I just want to show you how it works and I want everybody to access it, I'll make it public. Then from there, I'll say create repository. So once that repository has been created, I now need to connect that repository to my code over here. The connection is only done once. Now this is important because once I do the connection, if every time I just want to make changes, I'll push. Every time I want to download changes, I'll pull. So push to commit changes from my computer to online, pull to get from online to my computer in that order. Now I've already signed up on GitHub with my Visual Studio Code. Others, if you try to attach without logging in, it will open a new browser window and require you to log in. So once you've logged in, that's basically it. I don't think it's going to be a complication on that. So after we have created our repository, We had already done these first steps. We had initialized the Git repository. We have also committed our first commit. So since we have already done that part, we can do the last three. So you can see these three here are exactly the things that we have here. So just execute the last three. So the first thing we do is we add a remote repository to our current Git to our current Git folder, which is local on our machine. So I'll copy this part, then I'll come inside Visual Studio Code over here, then I'll paste that code over here. So git remote add origin, then I give the name of the repository. Then I'll press enter. As you can see, it's not asking me for anything, but it has actually added that repository directly. So because I've already signed in, as I've mentioned here, it just links it directly. I don't need to do anything other than that. Then the other thing I need to do is just to come and create this branch. So we're going to look at branching later on, but there is a branch called main. So this is where our main code is going to go. So let me just create this branch. So I'll copy that and paste it here. Then now I need to push that code to that branch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this code and I'm going to push it to main. So git push minus u origin, then the branch, which is main over here, or whatever you call it, the branch. If you call it uncle or master or whatever it is, then just replace that name here. So I'll just copy that and I'll paste it here. And I want you to observe what happens. So when I copy it and paste it, a few things are going to happen here. So there's a bit of files that are going to be written. So it's going to create a new branch called main, and of course it's going to set up that main to track origin. So if I come back to my GitHub online, which is here, and I come back to this folder called my Expedia, now you're going to be able to see it has all the files that I implemented. So I have a controller, so it's saying setting up from the structure and implementation. So basically this is the text that I had written. This is the text that I had written, and of course it has included those two files. So I have my files online right now and I've not done anything, just connected them to my GitHub account, then I pushed, and now all of a sudden I have this code online. Now, to make this thing look very, very magical, I will come to this folder over here and I can actually create a copy of it. So in the event say there was an issue, or maybe you want to look at the code that I have written, you simply come to the code here, then you simply copy this GitHub path over here. You can copy this. So once you copy this, you can open a new folder on your computer. So let me just come back to my computer. Okay, let me open a command prompt so that I show you that actually I can be able to copy that file without doing anything. And that folder is public anyway. If I copy it and paste it, if I paste that here, you will see you're able to access it. Okay? If you copy and paste that part, you are able to access the code because I made this folder public, which means anybody can be able to access it. So when I open my command prompt, like so, then maybe inside administrator, I want to go, yeah, inside my administrator, I want to create, maybe say make directory called my Expedia. Then I move inside my Expedia, my Expedia. So I'm inside my Expedia. So the only thing I need to do to download that entire code that I have written over there, I'll simply say git clone. Then I'll paste the path that I copied, this path over here. This path over here, this path. So what I copied, I just say git clone, then that path. Then I press enter, then see what happens. Since that folder is public, it will just download that folder. So if I say here ls or list directory, um, why is it not? Okay, dir, that's Linux. So if I say dir, you can see I have another folder called my Expedia. So if I log on to my Expedia, cd my Expedia. So then I say they are. So you can see I have two folders, controllers and models, but you can actually open it physically so that you see how that happens. So I'll come to this PC, I'll come to users, then I'll come to administrator, then I'll come to my Expedia. Then inside my Expedia, I have another my Expedia because that's the clone directory. Then you can see I have all the files that are actually there as far as the code that I pasted is concerned. And this is super useful because now it means that I don't need to do anything to be able to get that code. Just simply do git clone, put put that directory, and you're going to be able to see all the changes I have made to that particular piece of code. So I want to make a few changes to my files. For example, you can see here inside I don't have a folder called databases, and I didn't include database. Let me say, for example, I forgot databases and I want to add back database inside this particular folder. Since you already downloaded it, so I'll come and make changes to my, I'll close this. I don't need this anymore. I'll come and make changes here and say create a new folder called databases or database. Then inside database, I'll come into my SQL log over here and I'll say this database of mine, I want to export it. So I'll right click, I'll go to backup, backup as SQL dump. Then I'll select that folder where I want to backup. So it is my Expedia, docs. Yeah, my Expedia should be there. It's actually Expedia, not my Expedia. Expedia, XXX here. So inside this database folder, that's why I want to save my database file, database.sql. So I want to export that database there, and I'll export everything. So I've already exported everything inside that folder. So if I come back to my window over here, you'll see I have this database file here. You can see it has a U, which means it's not being tracked. So we're going to repeat the same process again to make sure that it is added to our Git repository and you're able to track it. So I'll say git add dot, which means add all the files. Then I'll say git commit minus m. Then I'll say added database for the application. So I forgot to add the database. Now I've added the database for the application. Then I commit. Then I'll simply say git and I'll say push. That's it. It will automatically upload because I already added the remote origin. It will automatically upload that all the changes, all the files that I've changed as far as my program is concerned. So if I come back here to this GitHub repository and I just refresh, you can now see I have database. There are two commits. This one has just happened now, and I only made a change to one file, which is this database.sql. So if I click on it, you can be able to see the content that it has. So I can comfortably move my data back and forth online, back to my computer, and so forth and so forth. So I have moved it online. Let me bring it back to my computer. So if you open this my Expedia folder, you're seeing that right here, I don't have any database. So if I just move to this folder and I say CMD, to open the command prompt so that I'm inside that folder. Then I say git pull. It will go online, get all the changes that have happened, then automatically update my code down here. So now you can see I have the database here and the file is actually here. And if there were any changes that had occurred as far as my application is concerned, I'm going to be able to see all those changes over here. That is the power of Git, and that is what we're going to be doing moving forward. So you will create a Git repository, you will add a remote repository, you will initialize the repository. You can, after initializing the repository, you can now create your initial commit, give a description for that particular commit. Then, of course, now you can add a remote origin, then publish those your code inside that remote origin. Then moving to another machine, you can just go ahead and pull the changes that you have made. It will be able to bring up for you all the changes that you have made in the database based on what you committed last. And moving forward, that is how we're going to be sharing our code as we move into these projects moving forward. Now, this is actually what Lab 5 was supposed to help us achieve today. How we can be able to use Git to do version control and save our data remotely outside our computer so that we can share it with other people and they can also be able to contribute to it and so forth and so forth. Are we together? So I think that is what was our target for today. So I'll give us an opportunity to ask for any questions, and if there are none, then you can go ahead and replicate the same on your project. All right. Any question or comment? You can unmute your mic, you can type on the comment box, however you feel is going to be convenient for you. All right? Kuna swali? Okay, so if there's no question, I think we can leave it at that. I will share the contents of this on YouTube. So in case you didn't understand something, you can just go ahead and follow it up. The link is also provided. I'll also provide the link for the repository just in case you need to clone the code and see exactly how I have achieved my tasks. All right. So if there's no question, I think we can take a break. Then we meet again on Thursday. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.